There was a beautiful ship. It moved through space like a silver leaf floating on a dark river. The vessel was not built for war. It was built for discovery, for learning, and for carrying those who wanted to understand the universe better. Captain stood on the bridge and looked at the stars through the wide observation window. She was a species known for their gentle nature and their love of knowledge. Her skin was pale blue, and her large eyes reflected the distant lights of faraway suns. She had commanded this research vessel for 12 years, and she had never once faced real danger. That was about to change. "Captain," said her navigation officer, a young named. His voice was shaking. "I am detecting multiple ships entering our sector." Turned away from the window. "How many ships?" Looked at his screen. His hands were trembling as he counted. 30, Captain, 30 warships." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing. 30 warships was not a patrol. 30 warships was not a coincidence. 30 warships was an attack force. "Identify them," ordered. She kept her voice calm, but inside her chest her heart was beating fast. Worked at his controls. After a moment his face became even more pale. "They are, Captain." The words spread across the bridge like poison. They were known throughout the galaxy. They were conquerors. They were slavers. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. For years they had stayed away from this region of space. But now they were here and they had nothing to fight them with. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," said quickly. "Tell them our position and tell them we need help immediately." "Yes, Captain." Watched the tactical display as the ships moved closer. They were surrounding forming a circle around it like predators surrounding wounded prey. There was no escape route. The research vessel was fast, but it could not outrun 30 warships. She thought about her passengers. 400 souls were aboard this ship. Scientists, researchers, families who had joined the expedition. Children. There were children on this ship. "Captain," said another voice. This one was different from the others. It was deeper, calmer, and it came from the back of the bridge. Turned to see Ho walking toward her. He was the only human aboard He worked as an exchange engineer, part of a program that placed human specialists on alien vessels to share knowledge and build friendships between species. He was tall by standards, with black hair and dark eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "What is our situation?" Ho asked. "Bad," admitted. 30 warships have surrounded us. We have no weapons that can fight them." Ho nodded slowly. He did not look afraid. In fact, his expression had not changed at all since he walked onto the bridge. This confused, every around her was showing signs of fear. Their hands shook. Their voices trembled. But this human stood perfectly still, his breathing slow and steady. "Have you sent a distress signal?" Ho asked. "We are sending one now to the Galactic Council." Ho shook his head. "Send another one. Use the emergency frequency for human vessels." Hesitated. "There are no human ships in this sector. The nearest human fleet is days away." "Send it anyway," Ho said. "Please." Something in his voice made obey without argument. She nodded to her communications officer, a woman named Ah. "Do as he says. Send an SOS on human emergency frequencies." Ah's fingers moved across her controls. "Message sent, Captain, but he is right. The nearest human ships are very far from here. Even if they hear us, they cannot reach us in time." Ho said nothing. He just watched the tactical display, his eyes tracking the movement of the enemy ships. A new voice filled the bridge. It was harsh and cold, and it came through the communication system. "Vessel, this is Commander of the Conquest Fleet. You are in territory that now belongs to the Empire. Surrender your ship and your passengers or you will be destroyed." Felt her stomach tighten. She walked to the communication panel and pressed the button to respond. "Commander, this is Captain of the research vessel. We are a peaceful scientific expedition. We carry no weapons and pose no threat to you. Please allow us to leave this space peacefully." There was a moment of silence. Then the commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You do not understand, Captain. We do not want you to leave. Your passengers will make excellent workers in our mining colonies. Your scientists will share their knowledge with us whether they want to or not. Surrender now and some of you might survive." The communication ended, stood frozen. Around her, she could hear crew members crying softly. Some were calling out to their families on the lower decks. The fear on the bridge was so thick she could almost taste it. But Ho was still calm. "Captain," he said, "how long can our shields hold against their weapons?" Had to think for a moment. Her mind was clouded with fear, and she forced herself to focus. "Maybe 2 hours, perhaps 3 if we redirect all power to defensive systems." "Then we have time," Ho said. "Time for what?" asked. "Help is too far away. No one can reach us before our shields fail." Ho looked at her. There was something in his eyes that did not understand. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was something else entirely. "Captain, I need your permission to address the crew." Stared at him. Address the crew, why? Because they need to hear something right now. They need to know that this is not over. Did not understand what the human was planning, but she had no better ideas. She nodded. "Very well, you may speak to the ship." Ho walked to the main communication panel. He pressed a button that would broadcast his voice to every deck, every room, every corner of the. Then he began to speak. "Attention all passengers and crew. My name is Ho. I am the human engineer aboard this vessel. By now you all know that we are surrounded by warships. You are afraid. That is natural. Fear is what keeps living beings alive. But I want you to understand something." He paused for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was strong and steady. "On my Earth, my species faced extinction many times. We survived ice ages that covered our planet in frozen death. We survived predators that were faster, stronger, and more dangerous than us. We survived plagues that killed millions. And every time we found a way to continue. Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the fastest, but because we never, ever gave up." Listened with her mouth slightly open. The other on the bridge had stopped crying. They were all looking at the human with a strange expression on their faces. "I have sent a message to my people," Ho continued. "I do not know if they will hear it in time. I do not know if they can reach us before our shields fail, but I do know one thing. If there is a human ship anywhere within range of that signal, they will come. They will come because that is what humans do. We do not leave our own behind. And today, all of you are our own." He released the communication button. The bridge was completely silent. Then spoke. "He means it, does he not, Captain? He truly believes someone will come." Looked at Ho. The human met her gaze without flinching. "Humans have a reputation," she said slowly. "I have heard stories. They say humans are, that they come from a planet that would kill most other species. They say humans are stubborn and dangerous and that they protect their friends with terrible fury." Stories said, "Are they true?" Before could answer, Ho spoke. "Where I come from, we have a saying. When someone asks for help, you answer. It does not matter how far you have to travel. It does not matter how dangerous the journey is. You answer because that is what good people do." The tactical display beeped. One of the ships had fired a warning shot. It passed close to them, making the whole vessel shake. "They are getting impatient," said. "Then we need to buy time," Ho replied. "Keep them talking. Make them think you are considering surrender. Every minute we delay is another minute for help to arrive." Nodded slowly. The human's confidence was starting to affect her. For the first time since they appeared, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. "Ah," she said. "Open a channel to the commander. Tell him I wish to discuss terms." "Yes, Captain." As the communication channel opened, straightened her uniform. She would play this game for as long as she could. She would give her people every chance at survival. And somewhere in the darkness of space, she hoped that Ho was right. She hoped that humans truly were as loyal as the stories claimed. because if they were not, then everyone on the would die. In a distant corner of the galaxy, far from where they floated helplessly among its enemies, an alarm began to sound on the bridge of a human warship. The officer on duty read the message that had just arrived, and his eyes went wide. He reached for his communicator and called his captain. "Sir," he said, "we have received an SOS. A civilian vessel is under attack. They have a human aboard." On the other end of the communication, a woman's voice answered. It was calm and cold and full of authority. "Set a course, maximum speed, we are going." The stars began to blur as the human ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. The hunters were about to become the hunted. The hours passed slowly on the. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a day. The ships hung in space around them like dark clouds waiting to release a storm. Captain had been talking to Commander for what felt like forever. She asked questions. She made requests. She pretended to consider his demands. Each time he grew angry and threatened to attack, she found something new to discuss. But she was running out of ideas. "You are stalling," growled through the communication channel. His voice was thick with anger. "I am not a fool, Captain. You think help is coming. No one is coming. You are alone out here." "I am simply trying to protect my people," replied. She kept her voice calm, but her hands were shaking. "You must understand. I have 400 passengers on this ship. Many of them are civilians. If I surrender, what guarantees do I have that they will be treated fairly?" Laughed. "Guarantees? You want guarantees? Here is your guarantee, Captain. Surrender now and I will only kill half of your passengers. Keep stalling and I will kill them all and keep only the scientists." The communication channel went silent, stood there, her whole body trembling. She had no more tricks. She had no more time. "Captain," said Ho. He had stayed on the bridge through all the negotiations, watching and listening. "How are our shields?" "Check the display. 40%. They have been firing low-power shots to test our defenses. We have maybe 90 minutes before they fail completely." Ho nodded. He walked to the observation window and looked out at the enemy fleet. 30 warships, each one bristling with weapons. Each one crewed by soldiers who saw these as nothing more than resources to be harvested. 90 minutes, he said quietly. That might be enough." "Enough for what?" asked. "You heard the commander. No one is coming. Your message was sent hours ago and there has been no response." Ho turned to face her. No response does not mean no one heard it. Human ships do not always announce themselves. Sometimes they prefer to arrive without warning. Wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to the hope that he offered, but she was a captain and captains had to deal with reality. "We need to prepare for the worst," she said. "If our shields fail, what can we do?" "We fight," Ho said simply. The bridge crew stared at him, actually laughed though it was a nervous sound. "Fight? With what? We are scientists. We do not have weapons. We do not know how to fight." Ho smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something sharp behind it. "On Earth, I served in the military for 8 years before I became an engineer. I know how to fight. And more importantly, I know how to teach others." Felt something strange stir in her chest. "You want to train us in 90 minutes?" "Not to win a war," Ho admitted. "But I can show your security teams how to hold corridors. I can show them how to set up barriers. I can teach them where to aim if they board us. It will not stop them, but it will slow them down. Every minute we buy is another chance." There was silence on the bridge. Then Ah spoke up. "I want to learn," she said. Her voice was shaking, but there was determination in her eyes. "If they are going to take us, I want to hurt them first." One by one, other crew members nodded, stood up from his station. "Tell us what to do." Ho looked at Captain. "With your permission, Captain." Thought about her passengers. She thought about the families hiding in their quarters, the children clutching their parents and asking why the ship kept shaking. She thought about the scientists who had dedicated their lives to understanding the universe, not fighting in it. Then she thought about what they would do to them if they surrendered. "Do it," she said. "Teach us everything you can." Ho nodded and immediately began giving orders. He sent to gather the security teams. He told Ah to find anything that could be used as a weapon. He asked to identify the most defensible locations on the ship. As the crew scrambled to follow his instructions, watched the human work, there was no fear in him, no hesitation. He moved like someone who had faced death before and had learned to look it in the eye without blinking. She had heard stories about humans, but she had never truly believed them. Humans were supposed to be creatures from a planet so dangerous that simply surviving childhood was an achievement. They were supposed to be unstoppable in battle, fierce protectors of their friends, relentless enemies to those who threatened them. Looking at Ho now, she began to believe those stories might be true. Down in the cargo bay, Ho stood before a group of 20 security officers. They wore light uniforms and carried stun batons. Their eyes were wide with fear, and many of them were trembling. "I am not going to lie to you," Ho began. "They are bigger than you. They are stronger than you. They have better weapons and more experience in combat. If they board this ship, many of you will probably die." The security officers looked at each other nervously. One of them, a young male named Jinwoo, raised his hand. "Then why fight? Why not surrender and hope they show mercy?" "Because they do not show mercy," Ho replied. His voice was hard but not unkind. "I have seen what they do to captured populations. They take the strong ones as slaves. They kill the weak ones for sport. The children are separated from their families and raised to serve the empire. Is that what you want for your people?" Jinwoo lowered his hand. His face was pale, but there was anger in his eyes now. "No, that is not what I want." "Good." Ho picked up a metal pipe from the floor. It was about as long as his arm, and it felt solid in his hands. "Then listen carefully, because I am going to teach you how to make them pay for every step they take into this ship." For the next hour, he trained them. He showed them how to hold narrow corridors where the numbers would not help them. He taught them how to use cover, how to move in teams, how to protect each other's backs. He demonstrated how to aim for weak spots in this armor, places where a well-placed blow could cripple even a larger opponent. They learned quickly. They were not natural fighters, but they were intelligent and motivated. Fear had sharpened their minds, and anger had given them strength they did not know they had. As Ho watched them practice, he felt a familiar feeling rise in his chest. It was the feeling he had known during his years in the military, the feeling of preparing for battle. He had left that life behind when he became an engineer, but some things never truly went away. His communicator beeped. It was Captain. "Ho, please return to the bridge. They are getting ready to attack." "On my way." He turned to the security teams. "Remember what I taught you. Stay calm, work together, and do not give up no matter what happens." Jinwoo nodded. "We will make you proud, human." Ho allowed himself a small smile. "You already have." On the bridge, the situation had gotten worse. The tactical display showed the ships moving into attack formation. Their weapons were charging. "Shields at 30%, reported. His voice was barely a whisper. "They will not survive a full assault." Stood at her command station, her hands gripping the railing so hard her knuckles had turned white. "How much longer?" she asked no one in particular. "How much longer until they break through?" "Maybe 30 minutes, said, "maybe less." Ho walked to stand beside her. "You have done well, Captain. You bought us more time than I thought possible." "It was not enough," said bitterly. "Help is not coming, we are going to die here." "Maybe," Ho admitted. "But if we die fighting, that is worth something." Looked at him. There were tears in her large eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Is that how humans face death, with acceptance?" "No," Ho said. "Humans face death with defiance. We spit in its face and dare it to take us. And sometimes, if we are stubborn enough, we win." Before could respond, an alarm sounded. But it was not the alarm for an attack. It was something else. Ah looked at her console and her face went pale. Then it went bright with hope. "Captain, new contacts, ships are arriving." Moore asked desperately. "No," Ah was almost shouting now. "The signatures are human, 3 vessels. They are coming out of faster-than-light travel right now." The observation window flashed with brilliant light. Space itself seemed to tear open as 3 ships emerged from nothing. They were not beautiful ships like they were hard and angular, covered in weapons and armor. They looked like predators made of metal and fire. "The destroyer Soul's hammer," Ah read from her console. "The cruiser's pride, and the carrier indomitable spirit." Ho felt his heart swell. He recognized those names. They were ships from the fleet, the human force that patrolled the most dangerous regions of space. The communication system crackled. A new voice filled the bridge. It was a woman's voice, calm and cold and absolutely confident. "Vessels, this is Admiral of the Human Defense Force. You have surrounded a civilian ship carrying a human citizen. You have 1 minute to withdraw your fleet. If you do not comply, we will consider this an act of war and respond accordingly." The bridge was completely silent, stared at the 3 human ships on the tactical display. They were tiny compared to the 30 warships. They were outnumbered 10-1. But they were not attacking. Commander's voice came through the communication system. He sounded uncertain for the first time. "Human Admiral, you are outnumbered. You cannot possibly win this fight." Admiral's response was immediate. "Perhaps, but you should ask yourself a question, Commander. How many of your ships will survive if we decide to fight anyway? 3 human vessels against 30. I think we can destroy at least half your fleet before you bring us down. Maybe more. Is that a price you are willing to pay?" Silence. Looked at Ho. He was smiling, a real smile this time. "That is Admiral," he said. "She is famous throughout the human fleet. They call her the Ice Queen because she never shows fear. She once held off an entire pirate armada with a single damaged cruiser. She does not make threats. She makes promises." On the tactical display, the ships were not moving. They were waiting, calculating, trying to decide if the fight was worth the cost. And in that moment, realized something important about humans. It was not that they were stronger than other species. It was not that they had better weapons or better ships. It was that they were absolutely, completely, terrifyingly willing to die for the people they had promised to protect. And that made them the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The minute was almost over. The fate of 400 innocent lives hung in the balance, and somewhere in the void between the ships, 2 fleets prepared for a battle that would decide everything. The destroyer Soul's hammer cut through space like a blade. Its hull was from dozens of battles, each mark a story of survival and victory. Inside the ship, 300 human crew members worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. They had been traveling at maximum speed for hours, pushing their engines beyond safe limits to answer a call for help. Admiral stood on the command deck of the carrier Indomitable Spirit, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled the entire bridge. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, and her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like a grandmother, but her crew knew better. They had seen her lead them through impossible battles and bring them home alive. "Status report," she said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard it clearly. Commander Park, her second-in-command, stepped forward. "All 3 ships are in position, Admiral. Weapons are charged and ready. They have not moved since your warning." And the civilian vessel? The is holding together, but barely. Their shields are at 25%. If they attack, they will not survive the first strike. Nodded slowly. She studied the enemy formation on the display. 30 warships, each one capable of destroying a human cruiser in direct combat. By all military logic, she should retreat. She should call for reinforcements and return when the odds were better. But military logic did not account for everything. The SOS, she said. It mentioned a human citizen on board. Yes, Admiral, an engineer named Ho. He is part of the exchange program. Was quiet for a moment, then she spoke again. Do you know why humans have the exchange program, Commander Park? To build relationships with other species, Admiral. To promote peace and understanding. That is the official reason, agreed. But there is another reason. A reason we do not write in the official documents. We send humans to live among alien species so that when something like this happens, we have someone to fight for, someone to rescue. Because humans do not fight well for abstract ideas. We fight for people, for faces and names and lives. She turned to face her command crew. Every one of them was watching her, waiting for orders. Today we fight for Ho, she said, and for the 400 civilians who had the courage to call for our help. We will not abandon them. We will not retreat. And if they want to stop us, they will learn what it means to face in battle. The bridge erupted in cheers, allowed the celebration to continue for exactly 3 seconds before raising her hand for silence. Now, she said, let us see if Commander has made his decision. Back on the captain watched the standoff with growing tension. The minute was almost over. Soon, Commander would have to choose. He could attack and risk losing half his fleet, or he could retreat and lose face in front of his subordinates. He will not retreat, Ho said quietly. He was standing beside watching the same tactical display. They are too proud, they will attack. Then the humans will be destroyed, said. 3 ships cannot defeat 30. You might be surprised. Ho pointed at the human vessels on the display. See how they are positioned. The carrier is in the back, but the destroyer and cruiser are in front. That is an aggressive formation. They are not trying to defend. They are preparing to attack. Attack could not believe what she was hearing. With 3 ships. Human ships are built differently than most vessels in the galaxy, Ho explained. Our is a high-gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you from the moment you are born. So when humans started building ships, we built them the same way we build everything else. To survive, to endure, and to fight. The communication system crackled. Commander's voice filled the bridge. Human Admiral, he said, you have made a mistake coming here. Your threats do not frighten me. I have 30 warships under my command. You have 3. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution. Admiral's response was immediate. Then stop talking and start fighting, Commander, or our warriors all talk and no action. Gasped. She could not believe what she had just heard. The human admiral had just insulted the commander directly. That was not diplomacy. That was provocation. On the tactical display, the fleet began to move. 20 ships turned toward the human vessels. The other 10 remained in position around the. They are splitting their forces, Ho observed. Is keeping ships here to make sure we do not escape, but that means he is sending only 20 against the humans instead of 30. 20 against 3 is still impossible odds, said. Ho smiled. Watch. The battle began. The Soul's hammer fired first. Its main cannon released a beam of concentrated energy that cut through space like a sword of light. The beam struck the lead ship directly in the center, punching through its shields as if they were not there. The ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. One down, Ho said. The returned fire. Dozens of weapons unleashed their fury at the human destroyer. The Soul's hammer did not try to dodge. Instead, it flew directly into the attack, its own shields absorbing hit after hit. Normal ships would have been destroyed in seconds. The Soul's hammer kept coming. Human ships have redundant systems, Ho explained to the shocked crew. Multiple shield generators, multiple engines, multiple weapon systems. If you want to stop a human ship, you have to destroy it completely. Damaging it is not enough. The Pride joined the fight. It swooped in from the side, its weapons firing in rapid bursts. 2 more ships went down in quick succession. Their commanders had not expected the human cruiser to be so fast or so accurate. But they were not helpless. They were experienced warriors, and they quickly adapted to the human tactics. They concentrated their fire on this pride, hammering it with everything they had. The cruiser's shields began to fail. "They are taking too much damage," said anxiously. "They cannot keep this up." Then the indomitable spirit revealed its true purpose. The carrier had been hanging back, watching the battle from a safe distance. But now its massive launch bays opened, and hundreds of small craft poured into space. Fighters, bombers, attack ships. Each one was piloted by a human who had trained their entire life for exactly this kind of moment. The small craft swarmed into the formation like angry insects. They were too fast and too numerous to target effectively. While the main ships kept the distracted, the fighters attacked from every direction, targeting engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. "That is the human strategy," Ho said. His voice was filled with pride. "Keep the enemy focused on the big threats while the small ones tear them apart piece by piece." Within 10 minutes, they had lost 7 more ships. The remaining vessels were damaged and confused. They had expected an easy victory against 3 human ships. Instead, they were fighting for their survival. On the indomitable spirit, Admiral watched the battle with satisfaction, but she was not smiling. Not yet. "Status of the enemy fleet around the civilian ship?" she asked. 10 ships remaining, Admiral. They have not moved." "Then we need to move them." Turned to her tactical officer. "Tell Captain on the Soul's Hammer to break through the main formation. Head directly for the... Make the choose between stopping us and protecting their position." "Yes, Admiral." The Soul's Hammer received its orders. Captain, a young man with fierce eyes and a face, read the message and laughed. "They want us to charge through 20 ships?" his first officer asked nervously. "No," replied. "They want us to charge through the ships that are still in our way. The Admiral has already handled most of them. We just need to finish the job." He pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, this is the captain. We are about to do something very stupid and very dangerous. In other words, a normal day for the Soul's Hammer. Hold on to something." The destroyer accelerated. It pushed through the remains of the formation, its weapons firing continuously. Ships tried to block its path. The Soul's Hammer went through them or around them, never stopping, never slowing down. They watched in disbelief as the human destroyer approached. It was covered in scorch marks and battle damage. Parts of its hull were glowing from absorbed weapons fire. But it was still moving, still fighting, still coming to save them. "They are insane," whispered. "Completely, absolutely insane." Ho laughed. It was the first time I'd heard him laugh since the crisis began. "No," he said. "They are human. This is what we do. This is who we are." The 10 ships around the finally moved. They turned to face the incoming destroyer, leaving the civilian vessel unguarded for the first time in hours. And that was exactly what Admiral had been waiting for. "Now," she said quietly on her bridge, "all fighters protect the... Do not let a single ship near it." The swarm of human fighters changed direction. They raced toward the civilian vessel, forming a protective shield around it. Any ship that tried to approach was met with withering fire from dozens of attack craft. The tide had turned. The hunters had become the prey. Commander watched from his flagship as his fleet fell apart around him. He had started with 30 ships. Now he had less than 15, and more were being destroyed every minute. "Impossible," he muttered. "This is impossible." But it was not impossible. It was simply human. And the battle was not over yet. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Might. Around him, his officers were shouting reports, trying to make sense of the chaos that had consumed his fleet. Alarms were screaming. Lights were flashing. The smell of smoke and fear filled the air. "How many ships have we lost?" demanded. "17, Commander," his tactical officer replied. His voice was shaking. "We have 13 ships remaining. The humans have lost none." Slammed his fist against his command console. The metal bent under the impact. He was a large creature, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick scales and powerful muscles. He had fought in dozens of battles and had never known defeat, until today. "This makes no sense," he growled. 3 ships, 3 pathetic human ships, and they have destroyed more than half my fleet." His communications officer looked up nervously. "Commander, we are receiving a message from the human admiral." "Put it through." Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. She looked exactly as she had at the beginning of the battle. Calm, cold, completely in control. "Commander," she said, "you have seen what we can do. Your fleet is broken. Your ships are dying. You have 2 choices now. You can retreat with what remains of your force, or you can continue fighting and lose everything. The choice is yours." Bared his teeth. "You think I will run? You think I will show weakness in front of my warriors? We do not retreat." "Then you will die," said simply, "and your warriors will die with you. Is your pride worth more than their lives?" The communication ended, stood there breathing heavily. His officers were watching him, waiting for his decision. Some of them looked afraid, others looked angry, all of them were tired. "Commander," his first officer said carefully, "perhaps we should consider a tactical withdrawal. We can return with reinforcements and crush the humans when we have more ships." "Silence," roared. "I will not run from these creatures. I will not be remembered as the commander who fled from 3 ships." He turned to his tactical officer. "Concentrate all remaining ships on the human destroyer, the Soul's Hammer. Destroy it and the others will fall." "Yes, Commander." The remaining ships began to move. They formed a tight formation and headed directly toward the Soul's Hammer, which was still positioned between them and the... It was a desperate attack, but it was also dangerous. If enough ships hit the destroyer at once, even human engineering might not be enough to save it. On the Soul's Hammer, Captain watched the incoming attack with a grim expression. His ship was badly damaged. Half of his weapons were offline. His shields were barely functioning. But he had his orders, and he had no intention of disobeying them. "All hands," he said over the communication system. "Incoming attack. This is going to hurt, but we hold our position. We do not move. We do not retreat. The is behind us, and we are all that stands between them and death. Make me proud." The response came from every deck of the ship, voices calling out in defiance. Crew members who knew they might die in the next few minutes but refused to give up. Engineering said, "How much power can you give me to the shields?" "I can give you everything, Captain," the chief engineer replied. "But if I do, we will not have enough power to fire our weapons." "Then give me everything. The fighters will handle the offense. Our job is to survive." "Yes, sir." The Soul's Hammer's remaining power flowed into its defensive systems. The shields strengthened, glowing bright blue around the damaged hull. The ship stood its ground like a warrior preparing to receive a charge. The attacked. 13 ships fired everything they had at the Soul's Hammer. Energy beams and missiles and kinetic projectiles filled the space between them. The destroyer shook under the impact. Metal groaned. Systems sparked and failed. Crew members were thrown from their stations. But the ship did not break. It did not fall. It held. Captain gripped his command chair as the bridge shook around him. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead, but he ignored it. Damage report. Shields at 10%. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. We have casualties. Seal the breaches. Get the wounded to medical. And somebody tell me when those fighters are going to arrive. As if in answer to his question, the human fighters swept in from behind the formation. They had circled around during the attack, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now they fell upon the enemy ships like wolves on injured prey. They were caught between 2 threats. The soul's hammer in front of them, absorbing their firepower. The fighters behind them, tearing into their exposed engines and weapons. They could not focus on both at the same time. One by one, the ships began to die. The crew watched the battle with a mixture of horror and awe. They had never seen anything like this. The violence, the destruction, the absolute refusal of the humans to give up even when victory seemed impossible. "They are protecting us," Ah whispered. She had tears in her eyes. "They are dying to protect us." Captain stood at the observation window, her hands pressed against the glass. She could see the soul's hammer in the distance, surrounded by explosions and weapons fire. She could see the human fighters darting through the chaos, trading their lives for ships. "Ho," she said quietly. Why do they do this? They do not know us. They do not owe us anything. Why are they willing to die for strangers?" Ho walked to stand beside her. He watched the battle with a complicated expression: pride, sadness, determination. "On Earth," he said slowly, "we have many stories about heroes, people who stood against impossible odds to protect the innocent, people who gave their lives so that others could live. When we were children, we grew up hearing these stories. They became part of who we are." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Humans believe that life has meaning because of what we choose to do with it. We cannot live forever. We cannot be everywhere at once. But we can choose to stand for something. We can choose to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And when we make that choice, death becomes less frightening. It becomes a price we are willing to pay." Looked at him. "That is beautiful and terrifying at the same time." "Yes," Ho agreed. "Humans are often both." The battle was reaching its end. The fleet had been reduced to 5 ships. Commander's flagship, the Conqueror's Might, was the only one still fighting effectively. The others were damaged and limping, trying to escape the human fighters that hunted them. On the indomitable Spirit, Admiral made her final move. "All ships," she said calmly, "converge on the enemy flagship. It is time to end this." The soul's hammer, still burning from the damage it had taken, began to move forward. This pride joined it from the side. The fighters reformed into attack groups and headed for the Conqueror's Might. Commander watched them coming. He knew it was over. His fleet was gone. His warriors were dead or running. He had started this day with 30 ships and dreams of conquest. Now he stood alone, facing destruction. "Commander," his first officer said urgently, "we should retreat. There is no shame in surviving to fight another day." For a long moment said nothing. He stared at the human ships approaching his vessel, remembering the arrogance he had felt just hours ago. He had thought humans were weak. He had thought they were easy prey. He had been wrong. "No," he said finally, "there will be no retreat. Open a channel to the human admiral." "Yes, Commander." Admiral's face appeared on the screen again. She looked the same as before, unchanged by the battle, unaffected by the violence she had ordered. "Commander," she said, "have you made your decision?" Straightened his shoulders. "I have. I challenge you to single combat, your ship against mine. If I win, you let me leave with my remaining warriors. If you win, we surrender." Was quiet for a moment. Then, to his surprise, she laughed. It was a soft sound, almost gentle. "Single combat," she repeated. "You want to fight me directly, ship to ship, commander to commander. It is the honorable way." Perhaps for the leaned forward slightly. "But I am human, Commander. We do not fight for honor, we fight to win, and we fight to protect our own." Her expression hardened. "Your challenge is refused. Surrender now and I will let you live. Continue fighting and I will destroy your ship with everyone aboard. You have 10 seconds to decide." Stood there frozen. He had expected the human to accept his challenge. He had expected one final chance at glory. Instead, she had dismissed him like he was nothing. 10 seconds. He thought about his crew, young warriors who had followed him into battle, trusting him to lead them to victory. They did not deserve to die for his pride. 5 seconds. He thought about his family back home, his children, his mate. Would they understand if he chose death over surrender? 2 seconds. "We surrender," said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. "The fleet surrenders." A cheer erupted. Crew members hugged each other, crying with relief. Fell to his knees, thanking every deity he could name. Ah was laughing and crying at the same time. Captain stood very still. She was watching the human ships on the tactical display. The Soul's hammer, battered and broken but still flying. The pride but victorious. The indomitable spirit surrounded by its swarm of fighters. "It is over," she said quietly. "We survived." Beside her, Ho let out a long breath. "Yes, we survived. Because of your people," turned to face him. "Because humans came when we called." Ho nodded. "We always will, Captain. That is our promise to the galaxy. Call for help and we will answer." Reached out and took his hand. It was a strange gesture for her, but it felt right. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for saving us." Ho squeezed her hand gently. "Thank me later. First, let us make sure everyone is safe." There was still work to do, wounded to treat, damage to assess, prisoners to manage. But for the first time in hours, the future looked bright. The siege was over. The humans had won. The space around, though, was quiet now. The fires had burned out. The debris had begun to drift away into the endless darkness. What remained of the fleet sat motionless, their weapons powered down, their crews waiting for the humans to decide their fate. Admiral had ordered her ships to hold position while rescue operations began. The Soul's hammer was too damaged to continue fighting, but its crew was already working on repairs. Captain had refused medical treatment until every member of his team had been checked first. That was the kind of leader he was. The indomitable spirit stood at her observation window, looking out at the battlefield. Behind her, Commander Park waited patiently for orders. "How many did we lose?" asked quietly. 14 fighters, Admiral, 37 crew members. The Soul's hammer has 60 wounded, 12 critical. Closed her eyes for a moment. 37 humans would not go home to their families. 37 empty chairs at dinner tables. 37 names to be added to the memorial wall. "Their sacrifice will be remembered," she said. "Make sure the families are with full honors." "Yes, Admiral." Turned away from the window. "Now, let us check on our rescued civilians. I want to meet this Ho who sent the SOS." A shuttle carried the Admiral from the indomitable spirit to the research vessel looked even more fragile up close, its thin hull and elegant design completely unsuited for the violence it had witnessed. It was a miracle the ship had survived at all. Captain met Admiral at the docking bay. The captain looked exhausted, her blue skin pale and her eyes heavy with fatigue. But she stood straight and greeted the human Admiral with dignity. Admiral said, "I am captain of the. On behalf of my crew and passengers, I thank you for coming to our rescue. You saved 400 lives today." Studied the alien captain. She had met many over the years. They were known for being peaceful, sometimes too peaceful. But this one had held her ship together through hours of crisis. That took strength. "You kept your people alive until we arrived," replied. "That took courage. You should be proud of yourself, Captain." Shook her head. "I cannot take credit for that. If not for your engineer, Ho, we would have surrendered within the first hour. He gave us hope when we had none." "I would like to meet him." Led the Admiral through the ship's corridors. Everywhere they walked, civilians stopped to stare at the human. Some of them bowed. Others reached out to touch her as if making sure she was real. A small child, no more than 5 years old by standards, ran up to and hugged her leg. "Thank you for saving us," the child said in a tiny voice. Knelt down to look at the child. Her cold expression softened for just a moment. "You are welcome, little one. Go find your parents now. They must be worried about you." The child nodded and ran off, stood up and continued walking. If she was affected by the encounter, she did not show it. They found Ho in the cargo bay where he had trained the security teams. He was helping the crew move supplies, his sleeves rolled up and sweat on his forehead. When he saw the Admiral, he stopped working and stood at attention. "Admiral," he said, "it is an honor to meet you." Looked at him for a long moment. "Engineer Ho, you sent the SOS that brought us here." "Yes, Admiral." "And you organized the defense of this ship, trained the crew, kept morale from collapsing." "I did what I could, Admiral." Nodded slowly. "The exchange program produces many engineers. Not all of them would have done what you did. You showed the qualities that define our species at its best: courage, determination, loyalty. I will be recommending you for a commendation when we return to human space." Ho's face flushed with surprise. "Admiral, I do not need any commendation. I just did my job." "Your job is to fix machines," said. "Today you helped save 400 lives. That goes beyond your job, accept the recognition. You earned it." Before Ho could respond, the security officer Jinwoo approached. He had a bandage wrapped around his head and his arm was in a sling, but he was smiling. "Admiral," he said, bowing slightly, "I am Jinwoo, head of the security team. I wanted to thank you personally for what your people did today." Regarded him with interest. "You fought as well, did you not? I heard they were preparing to defend the ship if the boarded." "We were." Jinwoo looked at Ho with admiration. "The human taught us. He showed us that even people who are not warriors can fight when they have something to protect. I will never forget that lesson." "That is the human way," said. "We believe that anyone can become strong when they have a reason to be. Remember that, Security Officer Jinwoo. You may need it again someday." The next few hours were busy. Human medical teams came aboard to help treat the wounded. Engineers from the Pride assisted with emergency repairs. Supplies were transferred from the carrier to replace what they had lost during the siege. The prisoners were loaded onto transports and taken to the Indomitable Spirit. They would be held until they could be delivered to galactic authorities for trial. Commander went quietly, his pride broken by the defeat. He did not speak to anyone during the transfer. As the day turned into night, Captain found herself standing on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. There was no longer surrounded by enemies. Instead, it was protected by human warships that would escort them to safety. Ho joined her at the observation window. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Strange," admitted. "Yesterday I was a scientist commanding a research vessel. Today I am the captain who survived a battle with the... I do not know how to process that." "You do not have to process it right away. These things take time." Turned to look at him. "Will you stay with us after we reach safe space?" Ho considered the question. "My assignment with thee was supposed to last another 6 months, but after today, I think that assignment might change. The exchange program will probably want to move me somewhere less dangerous." "That would be a shame." Paused. "For what it is worth, I hope you stay. You have become part of this crew, Ho. You have become part of our family." The words touched something deep in Ho's heart. He had joined the exchange program to learn about alien species and to help build connections between humans and other civilizations. He had not expected to find a place where he belonged. "I will request to remain on the," he said. "I cannot promise they will approve it, but I will try." Smiled. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself since the crisis began. "Thank you. That means more than you know." On the Indomitable Spirit, Admiral was preparing to send her report to Human Command. She sat alone in her quarters, composing her words carefully. This battle would be remembered. It would be studied in military academies. It would become part of the history of human expansion into the galaxy. But more than that, it would send a message. She began to write. On this date, the human vessel's soul's hammer, Pride, an indomitable spirit responded to a distress call from the research vessel. The vessel was surrounded by 30 warships and faced imminent destruction or capture. Despite being outnumbered 10 to 1, our forces engaged the enemy and achieved a decisive victory. All 400 civilians aboard were rescued without casualties. The fleet was destroyed or captured. 37 human lives were lost in this action. Their sacrifice ensured the survival of innocent beings who had no one else to call for help. Let this serve as a reminder to all who would threaten the helpless. The humans are watching, and we will always answer the call. She sent the message and leaned back in her chair. Outside her window, she could see them floating peacefully among the human ships. Soon, they would begin the journey to safe space. Soon, the civilians would be reunited with their families. Soon, this day would become a memory. But some memories were worth keeping. 3 days later, the convoy arrived at a space station. It was met by cheering crowds and grateful officials. The story of the human rescue had spread across the galaxy, told and retold until it had become legend. Ho stood on the docking platform, watching the passengers disembark. Families were reunited. Children ran into the arms of parents who had feared they would never see them again. There were tears and laughter and promises to never forget what had happened. Captain found him standing there alone. "The Galactic Council wants to honor the human fleet," she said. "They are talking about building a memorial, something to remember this day." Ho shrugged. "Humans do not fight for memorials. We fight because it is right." "I know," stood beside him, watching her passengers celebrate. "But the galaxy needs to remember, not just to honor your people, but to remind everyone else what happens when you threaten the innocent." "And what is that?" Looked at him with her large, gentle eyes. "The humans come, and they do not stop until everyone is safe." Ho smiled. "I suppose that is true." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the crowd celebrate. The crisis was over. The nightmare had ended, but the memory would last forever. In the depths of space, the Soul's hammer limped toward a repair station. Its hull was, its systems damaged, its crew exhausted, but they were alive, and they had won. Captain stood on his damaged bridge, looking out at the stars. His first officer approached him with a message. "Sir, we have received word from Admiral. She says to tell you that you did well. She is proud of the ship and the crew." Nodded slowly. "Tell her we were just doing our job." "She said you would say that, sir. She also said to tell you that you are getting a new ship. The Soul's hammer is being retired. You will command the Soul's thunder when it launches next year." For the first time in days, laughed. "Soul's thunder, I like the sound of that." The stars continued to shine. The galaxy continued to turn. And somewhere in the vastness of space, other beings looked toward human territory with new respect. They had learned an important lesson. When you threaten the innocent, the humans will come. They will fight against impossible odds. They will sacrifice everything to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And they will win. Because that is what do. That is what humans do. And the galaxy would never forget it.